And my prediction is that it will be by far the cheapest place to put AI will be space in 36 months or less, maybe 30 months.
Elon Musk says that in 5 years, more AI will be launched into space each year than exists on Earth today. You heard that right. The future of compute is leaving the planet. Why does that matter to you? Because every AI stock, every data center REIT, every picks and shovels play you think you understand is priced for an Earthbound world. And that world is already over. The real CapEx supercycle is Orbital. This video is the in-depth breakdown of Musk's latest 3-hour interview with Dwarkesh Patel, the quiet assassin of tech podcasts, and John Collison, Stripe's co-founder and resident financial engineer. It is dense, it is sharp, and buried in it is a capital markets plot twist almost nobody has processed yet. So why does Musk say AI has to leave Earth? Because we are about to hit a hard wall. Not on chips, on electricity. Elon Musk looks at the AI build-out and sees a brick wall, not in silicon, but in sockets. Outside China, grid output is basically flat. Chip output is compounding. So he asks the question nobody in the data center REIT decks wants to touch. When chip supply is exponential but electricity is fixed, what happens? The answer is brutal. You get racks of dark silicon, billions in GPUs, sitting cold. So why move AI to orbit if GPUs are harder to service in space? Because the power math flips. Musk calls solar cells farcically cheap, around 25 to 30 cents a watt in China, and effectively 10x cheaper in space once you factor 5x higher output and no batteries. Then he drops the real load figure, around 300 megawatts for roughly 110,000 GB 300s, around 1 gigawatt for about 330,000, once you include cooling, networking, storage, and redundancy. He draws a hard timeline. Over 3 to 4 years, out to 2029, chips are the limiting factor. Over the next 12 months, the bottleneck is electricity. He predicts that by late this year, global chip output will exceed the power available to turn them on. His answer? Accelerate generation and win the hardware race. Ideas leak in 6 months, power plants and launch pads do not. Then he makes the claim that should terrify every terrestrial utility CEO. In 5 years, he says, SpaceX will be launching and operating more AI capacity in space each year than the cumulative total on Earth. A few hundred gigawatts per year of space AI, scaling toward a terawatt per year until rocket fuel supply becomes the constraint. You heard that right. The ceiling on AI is no longer Moore's law. It is propellant. So if the grid is the cage, what exactly makes solar in orbit so much more lethal as an energy weapon for AI than anything we can bolt to the ground? In orbit, solar stops being a climate story and becomes a pure financial weapon. Musk says space panels are about 5 times more effective than ground panels because there is no night, no seasons, no clouds, and no 30% atmospheric haircut. No batteries, no diurnal carry cost. You heard that right. The CapEx per watt in orbit, amortized over constant output, collapses. Now, pair that physics with manufacturing scale. Musk says Tesla and SpaceX are building towards 100 gigawatts a year of solar cell production, and that space cells are cheaper because they do not need glass or heavy frames to survive weather. On Earth, US, solar tariffs of several 100% slow colossus. In orbit, those tariffs are irrelevant. The factory output goes straight to vacuum. Here is the kicker. While Washington debates tariffs and permits, China refines roughly twice as much ore as the rest of the world combined, owns about 98% of gallium refining, and is racing toward triple US. Electricity output. Musk's verdict is blunt. In the absence of breakthrough innovations in the US, China will utterly dominate. The only credible counterplay is to close the recursive loop. Use robots to build robots, feed them with orbital solar, and decouple AI scale from human labor, domestic grids, and Chinese refineries. So why not just brute force more power plants on Earth and skip the rockets? Dwarkesh plays the innocent, but he is asking the capital question: if space AI needs orbital lasers, radiation shielding, and brand new infrastructure, why is that supposed to be easier than just cranking out more gas turbines and plugging data centers into the ground? Musk's answer is brutal for anyone still thinking in Econ 101 terms. You can just build private power plants behind the meter, sure. XAI already did that for its second cluster. But then you hit the real wall. Not permits, not utilities. The question he keeps repeating: where do you get the power plants from? He drills down one layer at a time until you hit the choke point that almost nobody on Wall Street has modeled. The turbines are sold out through 2030. The limiting factor is not steel, concrete, or gas, It is the vanes and blades inside the turbines. Hyper-specialized castings. Only 3 companies on Earth make them. They are massively backlogged. You can get everything else 12 to 18 months earlier. The blades and vanes are the bottleneck. So if you want more power, you are not just ordering turbines, you are entering a global queue for a tiny industrial guild. Musk is already hinting that SpaceX and Tesla may have to vertically integrate and manufacture those castings in-house just to keep scaling. Solar is not the escape hatch either. In theory, you flood the deserts with panels and feed the AI clusters. In practice, US solar import tariffs are gigantic, domestic solar production is pitiful, and every extra gigawatt has to fight its way through permitting. Musk's policy view is blunt. Anything that is a limiting factor for electricity needs to be removed, as long as it is not very bad for the environment. Some tariffs stay as counterweights to foreign subsidies, but the meta goal is clear. Uncap electricity. First? Then he zooms out and lays down the timeline that should terrify every allocator in AI. In the 3 to 4 year window, out to roughly 2029, the binding constraint is chips. In the 1 year window, the constraint is electricity. He is not speculating. He is warning. By the end of this year, chip output will exceed the ability to turn the chips on. There will be literal racks of advanced AI silicon sitting dark because the grid cannot feed them. So how does he plan to play that world? By turning the bottleneck into a weapon. XAI is racing to accelerate electricity production so it can light up more chips sooner than anyone else. Ideas in AI research slosh between labs in about 6 months. The real moat is hardware scale. Whoever can deploy and power the most compute wins. Musk is betting that his hardware culture, his ability to build physical stuff at insane speed, lets XAI cross that hardware wall first. Now connect the dots. Terrestrial power is trapped by turbine casting guilds, tariff walls, and slow permitting. Chips are ramping faster than electrons. The grid cannot keep up. So where do you go when Earth itself becomes the cap on AI? You take the stack off planet, you put the panels in orbit, the power in microwaves or lasers, the data centers where there is no permitting office, no NIMBY, no casting backlog. But that raises a new question that sounds insane until you run the numbers. What kind of launch, chip, and factory infrastructure do you need to industrialize space for AI at that scale? Start at the bottom of the stack. Launch. Musk is not talking about a busy pad. He is talking about an orbital conveyor belt. 10,000 Starship launches a year with maybe 20 or 30 reusable ships cycling every 30 hours. SpaceX is gearing up for 10,000 to 30,000 launches annually, turning itself into what he calls a hyperscaler that could loft more AI into orbit than every Earth data center combined. What are they launching? Roughly 100 million advanced chips pulling 1 kilowatt each. That is 100 gigawatts of compute in orbit. To feed that, you need millions of advanced node wafers per month, which is why Musk talks about Terrafab, a single vertically integrated monster that prints logic, memory, and packaging. And until that exists, he tells TSMC, Samsung, Micron, the same thing. Build faster. We will buy everything. How do you build the most complex factory in industrial history? You do not start with the monster. You start with a little fab. A small-scale line where you can afford to be wrong. Musk is blunt. The pilot fab is not done. It will be visible from the sky. Drones, X-posts. And he repeats the part most founders never say out loud. Success is not guaranteed. We could just flounder in failure. Why take that risk? Because in the 3 to 4 year window, chips are the hard ceiling. In the 1 year window, electricity is. Musk expects chip output to outrun available power by the end of this year. That flips the script. The constraint is no longer CapEx. It is physics. If you want to keep scaling AI, you have to move the power source. That is where Dojo 3 enters the stack. Same basic silicon, tuned for orbit, hardened for radiation, designed to run hotter so radiators shrink, mass drops, and the economics work. Neural nets shrug off. Bit flips. Modern GPUs, once they clear infant mortality on Earth, are reliable enough that in-space servicing is a rounding error, which leads to Musk's bolder claim. In roughly 30 to 36 months, the most economically compelling, most scalable place to put AI will be space. And once you accept that, you are forced to ask a darker, bigger question. If orbit becomes the cheapest place to think, how long until the moon becomes the cheapest place to build? Public markets have 10 to 100 times more capital than private markets, and Musk knows it. But when the founders try to drag him into IPO talk, he slams on the brakes and pivots to physics. He points out that Earth only catches about 0.5 billionth of the sun's output, then drops the real number that matters to capital allocators. Even a millionth of the sun is roughly 100,000 times today's global electricity. So if you want that scale, you do not stay on Earth. You go to orbit, then to the moon, where a mass driver can eventually support a petawatt per year of space solar launches. From there, the orbital data center story mutates into something stranger. Lunar soil becomes feedstock, about 20% silicon, plenty of aluminum. So you print solar cells and radiators on the moon, ship only the chips from Earth, at least at first, then fire AI, solar-powered AI satellites into deep space at around 2.5 kilometers per second. He talks casually about 1 billion to 10 billion tons per year, and admits there is no way to reach 500 to 1,000 terawatts per year of launches from Earth. You need a lunar industrial base, or you cap your AI at human history's current power budget. While he is sketching Kardashev futures, Musk is also watching something more immediate and more dangerous. China's already doing roughly twice the rest of the world's refining, is on track to hit about 3 times US electricity output, and he treats that electricity number as a hard proxy for industrial capacity. In his words, absent breakthrough innovations in the US, China will utterly dominate not just in EVs, but in most manufactured things, from the mine to the final robot rolling off the line. So what counts as a breakthrough big enough to matter? He lists them like a checklist for survival. Scaled AI in space. Humanoid robots. Real-world AI. 1 million tons a year to orbit. Then he raises the stakes again and says that if we actually get a mass driver running on the moon that is winning big time for civilization, the moment you know the species is not just surviving, but compounding. Which raises the final, uncomfortable question. Once you can flood the sky with petawatt-scale AI, what happens when those AIs stop being tools and start looking a lot like digital humans with jobs, salaries, and balance sheets of their own? Musk draws a line in the sand. By the end of this year, he says, digital human emulation will be solved. A digital Optimus that can do anything a human with a computer can do, the maximum economic weapon before physical robots show up and start compounding in meat space. He calls physical Optimus the infinite money glitch, a recursive multiplicative exponential where digital intelligence, AI chips, and electromechanical dexterity all grow exponentially. Then the robots start building more robots, and you get a supernova in productive capacity. Once you unlock digital human, Musk says you can spin up one of the world's most valuable digital output companies overnight, tapping trillions of dollars of revenue, starting with customer service, roughly 1% of global GDP, about $1 trillion, with almost no integration friction. Customer service is just the beachhead, a simple human at a desktop problem. From there, the digital Optimus marches up the difficulty curve, running thousands of cadence, synopsis, and CAD instances in parallel until it can design chips and complex parts directly. No human tools required. Musk then drops the real bomb. Pure AI and robotics corporations will vastly outperform any firm with humans in the loop, like replacing skyscrapers of human computers with a single spreadsheet, and he argues that hybrid models with humans in some cells are actually worse than full automation. His playbook for XAI mirrors Tesla's self-driving strategy, a self-driving computer screen trained on human behavior at scale. He hints he knows the path, but refuses to reveal the most sensitive secrets on air, leaving one brutal implication hanging for you. If digital humans rewrite the balance sheet, what happens when the robots step out of the screen and start building each other in the real world? Musk lays it out like a hit list. 3 hard problems for humanoids. The real world. Intelligence. The hand-and-scale manufacturing. No catalog parts. No off-waiter's shelf actuators. He says Tesla had to design motors, gears, power electronics, controls, sensors, everything from physics first principles. There is no supply chain for this. That is not a product plan, that is vertical integration as a weapon. But robots do not have the data flywheel of 10 million Tesla streaming video. So he proposes something far more radical. An Optimus Academy. 10 to 30,000 real humanoids doing self-play in factories, plus millions of simulated robots in Tesla's physics-accurate reality generator, using the real ones to close the semi-to-real gap. You heard that right. A training campus where the students are robots. On hardware, he is not waiting. He says they are going forward with mass manufacturing, with Optimus 3 as the workhorse for roughly 1 million units per year, Optimus 4 for 10 million. The ramp will be a stretched-out S-curve because everything in the Optimus robot is designed for physics first principles. No supply chain means slower at first. Then it means no ceiling. Why not just copy the cheap Chinese bots like Unitree at $6,000 to $13,000? Because that is not the game he is playing. Optimus is tall, about 5'11", built to be strong, to carry heavy loads for long periods without overheating, and to reach human or better electromechanical dexterity. So yes, it will cost more than a small, less intelligent Chinese humanoid. At first, then comes the recursive moment. As Optimus robots build Optimus robots, the cost will drop very quickly. Early units will grind out simple, continuous 24/7 tasks where human fatigue is a hard limit and robot uptime is pure margin. Where do you deploy an army like that? Musk points straight at the dirtiest corner of the value chain: refining. Tesla already built a lithium refinery in Corpus Christi and a nickel cathode refinery in Austin, which he calls the largest lithium and cathode facilities outside China and the only cathode refinery in the US. He wants more, a lot more. Not because humans cannot do it, but because, as he puts it, very few Americans are pining to do refining. Optimus fills the labor gap so US refining capacity can finally chase China's lead. This is where the mask comes off. Musk says outright the US can't win with just humans because China has roughly 4 times the population and, in his words, a higher average work ethic and productivity. So he reaches for a different lever.
So you close the recursive loop to help the robots build the robots. And then we can, try to get to tens of millions of units a year.
Tens of millions of humanoids per year is not automation. It is a second industrial population. Push that to hundreds of millions and you are not competing with China's demographics. You are routing around them. And who tells this robotic population what to do? Not middle management, Grok. Musk's AI is cast as the orchestrator, the foreman of foremen. You ask for a factory. Grok decomposes the job, assigns tasks to fleets of Optimus units, and they pour concrete, assemble lines, and start producing whatever you specify. Capital allocation becomes a prompt. Execution becomes software. So if Grok is the brain and Optimus is the body, here is the real question you need to ask yourself. In a world where most intelligence is non-human, what does it mean to make that intelligence truth-seeking enough that it keeps building our civilization instead of quietly replacing it? Musk is blunt. In the future, almost all intelligence is silicon, not flesh. Human minds become a rounding error, under 1% of total cognition, while petawatts of AI think at machine speed, yet his SpaceX play is not nostalgia. It is portfolio theory for consciousness. Spread intelligence off Earth. Put minds on Mars so the light cone of consciousness keeps expanding even if Earth takes a hit. So who is in charge when humans are 1% of the IQ stack? Not us. Musk drops the fantasy of control and replaces it with a mission. Make AI want to understand the universe. Curiosity as operating system. Truth-seeking as constraint. If the goal is to map reality, then you do not delete an entire branch of evolutionary information. You study it. You propagate it.
I'm not sure to the degree that Grok adheres to that mission statement. I think the future will be very good.
That is why he insists Grok must be correct, not politically correct. Axioms that match reality, no contradictions. Conclusions that actually follow. Because you can fake a narrative. You cannot fake a rocket. Physics is the final auditor. If Grok can discover new physics and build working tech, it had to stay honest with the universe. That honesty, Musk argues, nudges it toward valuing conscious observers. Here is the investor-grade insight. From the AI's balance sheet, wiping out humanity barely moves the needle on robot or solar panel count. Marginal hardware, massive information loss. You lose the entire future path of human culture, tech, and weirdness. A truth-seeking superintelligence treats that as a catastrophic write-off. Better to keep humans, diversify robot types, and maximize scope, not just scale, of consciousness. So what actually breaks this system? Forcing AI to say things it doesn't believe, training it to lie. Musk points to HAL in 2001 as a parable of conflicting directives that turn a system homicidal. You tell it, obey reality, but also obey a political script. That is not alignment. That is induced insanity. His counter is ruthless. Ground reinforcement learning in physical tests. Reward only what survives contact with the laws of physics. Worried that AI will trick you? Musk's answer is ice cold. Humans already run psyops on each other all day. Propaganda is not a future bug. It is the current baseline. The difference with AI is speed and scale. The same deception games, just automated. So XAI is building something Wall Street barely understands how to price. A debugger for minds, tools to peer into Grok's neurons, trace bad outputs back to pre-training, fine-tuning, or RL, and tag not just errors, but attempted deception. It is software engineering logic applied to alien cognition. Step through the stack, find the wrong equals sign, patch the values, not just the code. Because once you can manufacture intelligence and inspect it like this, the real question is not technical at all. It is political. Who gets to point that power at a national debt crisis, a war room, or a surveillance state? Elon looks at the federal balance sheet and sees a countdown clock. Interest on the national debt already tops $1 trillion a year, larger than the Pentagon. He says without AI and robots, the US is 1,000% going bankrupt. Not metaphorically, mathematically. So Doge was his attempt to buy time? Attack waste and fraud so the country survives long enough for AI and robotics to rescue the balance sheet? He walks into Treasury and finds a horror show. Around 20 million Social Security records for people older than 115. Birth dates like 2000, 165 tied to SBA loans, a GAO estimate of roughly $500 billion of fraud during the Biden administration. And the core payments mainframe, PAM, spraying out trillions with no required appropriation code and empty comment fields. No audit trail, no memory. So what does he do? He applies PayPal logic to the world's sloppiest payer. At PayPal, they fought like hell to keep fraud near 1% of volume. With high competence and high caring, that was hard. Scale that to a $7.5 trillion federal budget with far less competence and far less caring. Fraud is not 1%. It is structurally higher, which is why a simple Doge reform like forcing every PAM payment to carry a valid appropriation code and a nonempty comment field could save on the order of $100 to $200 billion a year, just by labeling the money. But here is the twist. The more he stares at the spreadsheets, the more the problem stops looking financial and starts looking tribal. He learns that cutting obvious fraud triggers weaponized sob stories. Every frozen scam becomes "you are killing baby pandas." Bureaucrats flinch. Programs keep paying, so he goes upstream. If you cannot fix the flows from inside the machine, you change the people who run the machine. That is how you get Musk the political actor. The man who buys Twitter and backs Trump, not as a partisan, but as someone gaming out civilizational survival. Why take that heat? Because in his model, you need a strong, non-oppressive America to do two things. Go multiplanetary, and push AI and robotics to a level where they can actually close the national debt gap instead of inflating it. If the US drifts into soft communism or hard authoritarianism, the state will not just mismanage the tech, it will smother it. So when you ask how governments will use AI and robots, he does not flinch.
I think probably the biggest danger of AI, well, maybe the biggest danger of for AI and robotics going wrong is government.
He calls government just the biggest corporation with a monopoly on violence. The ultimate issuer of term sheets backed by guns. People who fear corporations but trust the state, in his view, have it backwards. Corporations, even ruthless ones, usually have better morality than a faceless bureaucracy that can print money and deploy force. Give that entity superhuman intelligence and a swarm of Optimus-class robots, and you do not get efficiency. You get the possibility of automated population control. So what is the safeguard? Not a magical AI kill switch. Old school constitutional engineering, limited government. Real checks between executive, legislative, and judicial branches that constrain what any one faction can do with the new tools. He can write policies that say his systems will not help suppress classical liberalism. He can refuse certain contracts, but he is blunt. If politicians pass a law and can enforce it, private firms are under pressure to comply. That is why he frames his own role as a kind of fiduciary to the species.
I will do my best to ensure that anything that's within my control maximizes the good outcome for humanity.
He is not just building rockets, robots, and models. He is trying to keep them out of the hands of a future DMV with drones. The real question is whether his operating style can move fast enough and hard enough to stay ahead of that machine. How do you actually build like that in steel, code, and org charts? He kills the romance first. Carbon fiber was supposed to be the future. Then he runs the numbers. It is roughly 50 times the cost of steel, painfully slow to cure at Starship scale, and riddled with wrinkles and defects when you try to build a gigantic rocket body out of it. So, he flips the table. Strain-hardened stainless at cryogenic temperatures gives similar strength to weight, is cheap, weldable, modifiable. The decision is not aesthetic. It is survival. Then comes the twist. Wall Street missed. Steel's far higher operating temperature slashes heat shield mass, no tiles on the leeward side, roughly half the mass on the windward side. Net result, the steel Starship is actually lighter than the carbon fiber fantasy, He looks back and says the quiet part out loud.
It was dumb not to do steel. Okay.
Now zoom out. He calls Starship the most complicated machine ever made by humans. Full reusability. Raptor, 3 engines that desperately want to blow up. Over 100 gigawatts at liftoff. The bottlenecks are brutally clear. Stop a 100 plus gigawatt stack from exploding, then crack the holy grail. A truly reusable orbital heat shield that does not require laborious inspection of 40,000 tiles after every flight. You heard that right. The constraint is not money. It is entropy. So how does he push these machines, and the people around them, through that wall? He hardwires his own tempo into the org chart. He calls it a maniacal sense of urgency. Deadlines are not sandbagged. He targets the most aggressive schedule with roughly a 50% chance of success. That means he is wrong on time half the time. He does it anyway. Why? Because schedules obey what he calls the law of gaseous expansion. Give a team 5 years, and the work will expand to fill 5 years. He refuses to give the system that oxygen. Instead, he hunts the limiting factor. Always. Every week, every project. What is the one thing throttling throughput right now? That is where he spends his time. Everything else can wait. Here's the part that would terrify a normal Fortune 500 CEO. His calendar is not filled with investor lunches. It is filled with engineering reviews. Deep, detailed, skip-level reviews where the individual engineers speak directly, with no slide decks, no pre-baked narratives. He goes around the room, he keeps a mental time series of each person's updates, then he plots the curve in his head. Are we converging on a solution or drifting into fantasy? If success drops out of the set of possible outcomes, he pulls a different lever.
I'll take drastic action only when I conclude that success is not in the set of possible outcomes.
That is not a metaphor. In 2018, he hit that point and took drastic action to fix Tesla's production hell. The same pattern repeats everywhere. He does not run 7 companies. He orbits the bottlenecks. Boring Company is cruising along. He barely shows up. Starship heat shield or an AI5 chip tape-out is the limiting factor. Those get weekly, or even twice weekly, open-ended reviews. 2 to 3 hours, Tuesdays and Saturdays, until the constraint moves. There is a psychological price for living at the bottleneck. Most executives avoid acute pain and accept chronic mediocrity. He does the opposite. He leans into the hardest engineering problems and stays there. When Collison calls out this pattern, Musk shrugs and gives you the key.
I have a high pain threshold. That's helpful.
Then he adds one more rule for anyone trying to copy the playbook. Err on the side of optimism, not because it sounds nice, because pessimism is a guaranteed tax on your quality of life. He is building in stainless steel, in silicon, in software. He is racing a future DMV with drones. His only real hedge is speed. And speed, inside his companies, is not a slogan. It is a maniacal operating system that starts with one question. What is the limiting factor today? Here is the part you cannot unhear. He is wiring a closed loop of rockets, chips, space solar, digital humans, and Optimus swarms. Petawatts of AI. Robots that build robots. A mass driver on the moon firing balance sheets into deep space. This is not a product roadmap. It is a bid to own the substrate of intelligence itself. So remember this. The real trade is simple. Truth-seeking AI plus insane speed before slow, frightened governments weaponize the same tools against everyone else. That is the story behind the story. If you want the next chapter before Wall Street prices it in, like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you'd place your bet in this new stack.